Hello and welcome to Love with Intelligence, the podcast rewriting the rules of modern love. I'm your host, Lily Walford, a relationship and dating coach, creator of the Love IQ method, and your guide to creating the secure, fulfilling relationship you've always deserved. The kind where you feel deeply loved, truly seen, and completely at peace knowing that you have finally found the partnership that you've been longing for. Here's the truth. Love isn't about luck. It's about the choices you make. And when you choose smarter, you love better. So each week, I'll give you the tools to take control of your love life, shift your approach to relationships and dating, and to rewrite your story one smart choice at a time. Love bombing. It sounds romantic, right? A whirlwind romance, constant affection, grand gestures. But what if I told you that love bombing is one of the biggest red flags in relationships and often is a sign of emotional manipulation? So in this episode, we're breaking down the psychology of love bombing, how it works, why we fall for it, and most importantly, how you can spot the warning signs and protect yourself before it's too late. And I'll also talk a little bit more about how Unbroken, our membership, can help you break free from toxic relationship patterns and rebuild your confidence so that you can attract and maintain a healthy, fulfilling love life. So, what is love bombing? So, love bombing is a manipulation tactic where someone overwhelms you with excessive attention, flattery, gifts, compliments, and it's all in the early stages of relationship to create the feeling of deep emotional intimacy in that relationship, which also creates emotional dependence. So but here's the catch. This is not about love. This is where the big problem is, because love bombing is all about control. So if you haven't heard about love bombing before, let's go into a few of the characteristics of what love bombing actually is. So you'll have things like excessive affection too quickly. They'll say, I love you within days or weeks. They'll be saying things like, oh, I feel like I've known you forever. Why couldn't I find someone like you before? I've never met anyone like you before. You're amazing. You're this, you're that. And they'll constantly throw all these flattering things your way. Then what you'll have as well is grand gestures and over-the-top attention, so expensive gifts, constant texting, and usually it's really constant texting, constant calls, and there's this thing of them planning this future together. One of the things that people who love bomb, they'll always create this feeling of a future and this feeling of potential, like, look how great you guys could be, and you can be a power couple, and you can be this, and you can be that. So they create this, this very vivid potential, which is often what that person is craving. The victim is craving. And that's how you end up being pulled into that kind of reality. And then you have that intense flattery and idolization. They'll call you the best thing that's ever happened to them and all these different things. And then they'll create this dependency where it makes you feel like you're the perfect match and no one understands you the way they do. And the thing is, the goal with love bombing isn't to build a deep, lasting connection. It's to create a fast-track emotional attachment so they can control you later. And when we have a look at the way this works and why it works, is because all of that love bombing actually creates a serotonin and dopamine boost. And that's more addictive than a Class A drug. And we'll go into why more people, some people are more susceptible to this than others. But this is what we often tend to see in a narcissistic relationship. We'll see this in someone who's got very low emotional intelligence, very low empathy. I actually remember there was a time when I was single, I was on a dating app, and I had this person, I remember having this chat with this person, and literally it was just a couple of messages. And from just those couple of messages, they ended up finding out where I lived, what my second name was. They ended up sending me flowers. Like, they were beautiful flowers, that grand gesture, over the top attention. But obviously that wasn't okay. It was crossing the boundaries. It was crossing the line of what's healthy when it comes to dating and speaking to someone. Usually flowers and things like that, you'd give someone your address, or they'd know where you live, based from being dropped off from dates and things like that, not where they are hunting for that information down. Now, I know I'm using more of a extreme story here, but this is how this tends to be how that love bombing tends to begin. It's actually really interesting because I remember having this feeling of like, oh my goodness, this is totally wrong. And when my mum saw the flowers, she was like, oh, so when are you going to go and see them? And this is the problem as well. When you have that excessive affection, the grand gestures and all these different things, it creates something that we call this feeling of needing to reciprocate and needing to give back. So when we've got someone excessively giving to us, we feel the need or the guilt to actually give back. And that's what tends to be the problem as well with love bombing. So why do people fall for love bombing? So if you've ever fallen for love bombing, I want you to know it's not your fault. Love bombing is literally designed to bypass logic. And I think this is the thing. People think that manipulation is, if you've been manipulated, people think it's to do with not being clever. And it's a load of rubbish. It's actually to do with being quite empathic, but probably not having the best boundaries around your empathy, your emotions, and what your needs are. So what tends to happen with love bombing is it hooks you emotionally, and it's basically a psychological tactic that preys on your deepest human needs, and that's validation, belonging, and love. And if you did listen to the last episode, I went into something called schemas. So psychological reasons why people fall for love bombing, they tend to trigger a few different schemas within people. So schemas are things that, if you didn't listen to the previous episode, that's absolutely fine. Schemas are things that run in the background that cause us to see the world in some sort of way through, childhood or through bad relationships. So the triggers that tend to be triggered through love bombing are the abandonment schema. So if you fear being alone, love bombing can feel like a security blanket. If you've gone through the emotional deprivation schema, if you felt unloved in the past, sudden intense affection can feel like you've finally got the love that you've always wanted. And then you've got the mistrust schema. So if you've believed that someone's is showing this much love, it must be genuine. So these things can be triggered so easily, and if you've gone through being love bombed and you've gone through these types of relationships, you're probably going yes to 1, 2, or even 3 of those schemas. It can be very, very intense. Now, like I said, with love bombing, it can create the dopamine effect. Love bombing creates this emotional high, the constant praise, the attention. It makes you feel euphoric, and it makes you feel addicted to the relationship. And what I tend to say with people who are not necessarily happy with their life, or don't feel like they get joy from their life, as soon as they've got someone who's given them that dopamine hit, it can feel so addictive because they're not getting that attention or getting that high from anywhere else. So what tends to happen is it creates this dependence, a little bit like an addiction. It's like, I need this person, I need that person, because you're not going to get that high from anywhere else. And this is why love bombing is so dangerous. And then, when we think about things like attachment styles, I've got a very, I dislike the psychology around attachment styles, but I won't go into that in too much detail. But if you do have more of a anxious attachment style, you may crave that reassurance, and you may just need someone who's, showering you with that attention. So, love bombers mirror your desires as well. So you'll notice that they will be asking you questions about what you want. They'll be asking you things like, what is it that you want for the future? What do you desire in a partner? And they will copy you. Okay, so then it feels like they're your perfect match because you want the same things. And it's quite scary when this happens. I remember, again, when I was single, I ended up going on a video date. And I know, a video date, how cringy. And it was with this guy, and it was so weird because we were talking for about an hour, and I just knew something was off, and I was like, this person's a sociopath. And I kind of realized and diagnosed, and I'm terrible. As soon as I get a feel for something, I have to find the core of what's going on. But one thing that was fascinating about that date was the fact that I was saying, oh yeah, this is what I'm looking for. And I knew that he said something completely the opposite in the very beginning of what he wanted in a relationship. And it was completely different to what I wanted. And he said, oh yeah, me too, because da 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 da. And I said, well, that's funny because you've just previously just said this. And, wow, it was a very interesting conversation. I did catch him out and all these different things. But it's scary how a person who uses love bombing will morph into what you want. So what I tend to say to people who are dating is ask them to show their cards before you show yours, because you can start to see the genuineness of what they're actually wanting, why they want it, and also ask about past situations and what they've gone through and where their relationships have failed. Because often people who have low levels of empathy and low levels of emotional intelligence will blame their partners and blame what their partners have done and all these different things. People with a high level of emotional intelligence and empathy will, even if they've had bad relationships, they'll be able to pinpoint specifically what went wrong, what they did wrong, what their partners did wrong, and what they're looking for in the future as a result. With narcissists, they will literally just blame their partner, take no accountability, and will often use the negatives of their previous partner as almost like a hidden indirect rule book for you to follow. And that usually comes out a little bit later on. I'm going to go into the love bombing cycle as well, because I think this is really important for people to understand how love bombing actually unfolds and how it works and why it is so dangerous, especially in the beginning. Because if you think about it, within the span of a day to a week, this relationship suddenly gets really addictive. It gets exciting. It's intense. There's so much contact. And the reason why there is so much contact in the beginning is because, again, more proximity to you means there's more control, okay? Healthy relationships, there's usually a little bit of gap in between times when you're not together. There's usually a little bit of breathing space, whereas toxic relationships, it's usually constant messages, constant calls, constantly being around each other. This is where you often hear about people who end up moving in together within like the first week of being together. This is how intense it tends to be. So let's go through the cycles. So number one is obviously the love bombing phase, that overtop affection, that constant contact, the intense flattery, future faking. And I'll go into why it's faking because usually that phase ends very, very quickly. They'll talk about marriage, moving in, the big life plans, how life could look together, all these different things. Then, and this is where it gets really interesting, once they know they've got you hooked in, you then go through the devaluation phase. They'll suddenly pull away. They'll stop messaging. They'll stop giving you attention. They'll then go into criticizing you, invalidating your emotions, making you feel like you're doing something wrong or making you feel less than. And this, again, if you think about the addiction, okay, you've gone from that dopamine, that high, and then all of a sudden you're going through withdrawal. And again, this is what creates the intensity of people being afraid to leave, because they're so focused on the fake future and the potential of what that relationship could be, because you guys technically wanted the same in the future. And this is why it tends to be so painful, so scary, especially when the relationship comes to an end, where you think, oh, okay, who was this person? Because the truth is, you never really knew them in the beginning. You know, you'll start to understand them a little bit more in the end, and that's where it gets scary. So yeah, they'll go through that, pulling away, criticizing, invalidating you. And then this is the horrible bit. This is where you suddenly get the gaslighting and control. And this is the third stage. They'll make you doubt yourself. They'll shift the blame and make you feel like you have to earn their love back. And this is where it starts feeling a little bit like an emotional roller coaster. You'll go through the major highs of things being great. Then you'll go through the absolute low. And then whilst you're going through the lows, you'll have little tiny, almost like breadcrumbs of affection. Just a little bit to make you think, oh, things are getting better. It's going to be okay. And that's the big problem. So what they tend to do is they'll make you doubt yourself. So gaslighting, they'll make you feel like you're wrong. They'll make you think that you've done something wrong. They'll change the way that you look at your reality. They'll shift that blame to you. They will never take any accountability. It will always be your fault. And then we get to the fourth phase. And this is discard and hoovering. So they may suddenly leave. They might, it's so funny, because everything with a narcissist or someone who does the love bombing cycle, it's always got to be on their terms. So they may suddenly leave, and then when they leave, they'll then come back, whether it's in a day, a week, a month, and they'll come back with, we call this hoovering, because they'll start putting back the love bombing things to gain that control. Okay, as soon as they feel like they're starting to lose that control, they will start putting out everything to try and get that relationship back on track. So what tends to happen with this love bombing cycle is it actually creates something called a trauma bond. And this is where loads of people get trauma bonds so wrong. They think, oh, you've been through something traumatic together, and, that's the reason why you're so close or bound to each other. No, trauma bond is actually about the psychological impact of that relationship. And often victims who go through this love bombing cycle, if they think about leaving their partner, it can feel like the whole world is about to end and crumble around them, and life doesn't exist beyond that relationship. It can feel like losing that relationship is losing everything in your life. And that's the scary thing about the trauma bond, because it's an addiction. And also it's being so ingrained into their reality because they've created that future, that fake future in the very beginning. And when they create that fake future, they create a reality of what you believe the relationship you're in is. And this is where lots of people go, oh, it's the best relationship. They just get me. They know me. And it's often not because they actually know them. It's because they are being told by the narcissist, you get me, I get you. And this is actually a technique that's used in cults. There will be very little comments in cults that will be repeated again and again and again. And this is what makes it believable to the cult members. So it might be something like, oh, everyone's a family. Everyone who's in this, in this group is just like a family. Everyone's so nice. We all feel so connected. We're all here for each other. And it's these little slogans that tend to imprint in people's brains, and it bypasses that critical thinking. And it's the same with a toxic relationship. I know you. I love you. There's nothing I wouldn't do for you. I'm doing everything I can for you. And it's all just words. And this is why people tend to say, oh, action is louder, louder than Sorry, I totally butchered that. Actions are louder than words because it is so true. And this is the big thing with the difference between a healthy relationship and, the love bombing cycle in narcissistic relationships is a healthy relationship, you will see more action and you will feel the difference. With narcissistic relationships, they will tell you how to feel. They will tell you what the relationship is. They will tell you what to feel and how to experience the relationship. And that's the big problem. And this is where that gaslighting comes in. So, how do you spot love bombing early, and how do you protect yourself from being love bombed, especially in dating? So the first, if we're talking about red flags, okay, the first one is moving too fast in the relationship. If it feels like they are saying I love you way too quick. I mean, if you think about it, most people, when they're in a healthy relationship, they will do that at the right time, and it will be a gradual process. If I think about the relationship I'm in now, we didn't say that we loved each other until, was it, I think about 3 months into the relationship, somewhere around that, 2.5, 3 months. And it was after time of really getting to know each other. And the funny thing is, we didn't have to say that we loved each other. We just kind of knew anyway. We knew we were into each other. We knew that we were happy with the relationship we were going. We felt that. With narcissistic relationships and love bombing, I'm telling you this so you can feel like you have to say it back, okay? And they're controlling and forcing the speed of the relationship. Because if you're also thinking about these types of people, you're a resource to them, okay? You're a resource in some sort of way, whether it's arm candy, whether it's a place to stay, whether it's financial support, whether it's, helping them get better connections, that you're a resource in some sort of way, and they're looking to be able to exploit you because they want to be able to enjoy you as a resource. Versus healthy relationships, there's connection there and you feel the connection. Okay, so the next red flag is they'll do things to make you feel indebted to them. So over-the-top gifts, over-the-top affection. I mean, if you're getting these amazing compliments like, oh, you're just so amazing, I've never met anyone like you before, and then suddenly they stop talking. What do you feel pressured to say back? And that's how they start pulling out information from you. Just because what you tend to find is they'll pick people who are emotionally aware, who are socially savvy in some sort of way, and you will fill the space. You will fill the void, especially if you've been used to people pleasing. Okay, you know how to make people happy. Okay, then what they'll do as well is they'll test the boundaries, and they're very sneaky with this. With the whole moving in situation. I've known people who've said that they've gone on a date, the person stayed over, and months later they still haven't left. That's how sneaky they can be when it comes to testing those boundaries. And you will feel that. You will feel like, oof, there's something not right here. I want them to go, but I'm too afraid to say it. And they'll do things that will make you feel that indebted to them. You'll be afraid to break the relationship because it's the best relationship ever, and you don't want to appear to be a bad person in their eyes, or you don't want to be, you don't want to appear to be like their ex or anything like that. So they'll push for these things. And this is where we get also guilt tripping. So when you actually express your independence, your needs, the things that you value, they will do things to make you feel bad about that independence. They will make you feel bad about having emotional needs. They will make you feel bad about, living out your life the way that you want to. And this is a big telltale sign. So if you notice, like with love bombing, the relationship feels bad. Okay, it doesn't feel good. It feels good to get compliments, but there's pressure. And this is kind of the interesting feel of a love bombing relationship. And the other part is you'll have very extreme highs and lows, okay? 1 minute they're going to be adoring you, giving you all that validation, all those compliments, and then they'll pull away. So how do you protect yourself from having these things happen to you? So pace the relationship, okay? Do things that only you feel, that you feel comfortable with. So like I said, healthy relationships, they build gradually, okay? If it feels too fast, it probably is too fast. So this is about trusting yourself, trusting your needs, trusting what you want. And the other part is, which I'll go into number 2 now, is set clear boundaries. One thing with people that love bomb and that are forceful and that are more narcissistic, they hate the word no. They hate it when you ask for what you want. And they will either make you feel guilty, they will deny you, and they will push because they want to see how much control and how much influence that they have over you. A healthy person, when you say no, they'll be like, cool, okay, well, let me know what works for you. Okay, what do you need? How can we do this together? How can we make this work? Are you happy? They'll be checking in. Okay, number 3, we've kind of glossed over this before, but trust actions, not words. Okay, real love, it's shown over time. It's not the big gestures. It's not all the compliments. Watch how that person treats you. Number 4, listen to your intuition. Like I said, toxic relationships, there's a pressure. There's like a burning under your feet. You know there's something not quite right. Listen to yourself, okay? If something feels off, trust that feeling. It's okay if you're in a healthy relationship or you're moving into a healthy relationship and things feel exciting and things feel good. That's natural. If something feels off and you feel pressured, that's not okay. That's not a part of a healthy relationship, especially if you feel afraid about voicing that something doesn't feel right, okay? If you think about it, healthy relationships, it's all about open communication. It's all about honesty. And, when you have that, you've got something that's something that's healthy and something that's amazing. If you don't feel safe to be able to voice yourself, or you feel like you're going to be punished in some sort of way, or it's painful to speak out, this is probably more of a narcissistic, love-bombing, toxic relationship. And then the other part is build self-trust and healing, okay? We've talked a little bit about the schemas at play that can be triggered with love bombing. So if you know that you've got a fear of being abandoned, or you've got, you've never had your emotional needs met, you've never really connected with people who really love and care about you, or, if you've got anything there that you know is a weakness for you when it comes to relationships, work on it. And this is something we can do in our Unbroken membership. But one thing I'm going to say just before I dive into that is, remember, love isn't overwhelming, it's not obsessive, and it's definitely not conditional. Real love, it's steady, it's respectful, it's safe. And one of the big aha moments for me was realizing that healthy relationships, they soothe your nervous system, and unhealthy relationships activate it. And I knew in the very beginning stages how calm and secure I felt in the very beginning of the relationship that I'm in now. Okay, it was a very, very different, wonderful experience. And you can tell, you can feel it. There's no denying it at all. So, obviously breaking free from love bombing, it isn't just about recognizing it, it's rewiring your beliefs, it's strengthening that self-trust, it's learning about what real love looks like. And it's one of the reasons why I created Unbroken. So inside Unbroken, check out the membership, because we go into how we can heal these schemas, how we can identify and shift the deep-seated patterns after toxic relationships, and even what attracts toxic relationships too. We go into things that work. And the thing that I love about Unbroken is I've taken a lot of I've taken a lot of the waffle out of it, because I think there's so much rubbish out there that doesn't work, and I'm sharing in that membership things that have worked, things that are effective, things that are easy, that people can incorporate into their day-to-day lives with ease. And the other part is we've got a great community as well, where, you know, it's safe, it's a space to share, it's a space to heal, it's a space to grow with other people who also understand your journey. So if you've ever felt trapped in toxic relationships, Unbroken is here to help you to heal, grow, and thrive in relationships that truly support you. So I'm going to wrap this up. I hope that this has been helpful, and obviously if this episode has resonated with you today, take the next step. Don't let love bombing steal your self-worth. Come and join Unbroken. Check out the link underneath this episode, and we can start rewriting your relationship patterns for good. So go ahead, visit the link and join now. So don't forget, next week we're going to be diving into our next episode. We're going to be diving into the hidden ways that childhood affects your dating life. You're definitely not going to want to miss this one. So I hope that this has been helpful. I hope you've enjoyed this episode, and I hope to see you either in our membership, and I hope to see you next week. So take care, and bye for now. Thank you for listening to Love with Intelligence. If this episode spoke to you, please share it with someone who needs it, and please don't forget to leave a review. Every share helps more people like you rewrite their love stories. And of course, when you're ready to take the next step, please head over to our website, lovewithintelligence.com, and book your free love life analysis call, because together we'll uncover what's holding you back and help you create the love you really do deserve. You've got this, and remember, love isn't about luck, it's about the choices you make. So see you next time.